Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a massive question, one that really shapes everything from global politics to, our own personal sense of right and wrong. And that is, what do we actually owe each other as people living on the same planet? So, I want you to just start with this. Seriously, take a second and think about it. Is the world fair? The very fact that this is such a hard question to answer, and that for so many of us, the answer is a pretty quick no, that's exactly why we need to talk about global justice. To really get our heads around this, we have to think beyond our own borders. We're going to start with an idea we all kind of get, justice inside our own country, and then see what happens when we zoom out and apply it to the whole world. Think of it like this. In most countries, we have rules, laws, and systems that are supposed to protect people's rights and make sure things are at least a little bit fair. Global justice just asks a simple question. Why should those ideas stop at a border? It's about taking that same logic and applying it to all 8 billion of us. And this idea, it forces us to face some of the absolute biggest questions out there. I mean, these aren't just thought experiments for a classroom. The answers to these questions affect billions of lives every single day through things like foreign aid, climate policies, and human rights. But of course, not everybody agrees on what the answers should be. And that brings us to this huge philosophical debate. Basically, 3 totally different ways of looking at how the world ought to work. So yeah, there are 3 main competing ideas here. And these aren't just some dusty old theories, okay? They're kind of like the invisible scripts that guide how world leaders and even entire countries behave on the world stage right now. Okay, so first up, you've got cosmopolitanism. The core idea here is that your nationality is basically just an accident of birth. We're all part of one big human community, and because of that, we have a duty to help everyone. Next is statism. This is the more traditional view, right? It says a government's main job is to take care of its own citizens first. And then you've got realism, which is definitely the most cynical take. It says, look, global politics isn't about what's right or wrong. It's all about power. Nations are always going to act in their own self-interest. So why does any of this philosophy stuff matter? Well, because this debate isn't just happening in books. It's playing out in real time in some of the world's biggest and most important challenges. Whether we're talking about extreme poverty, human rights abuses, the refugee crisis, or climate change, how we try to solve these problems really depends on which one of those 3 viewpoints we're coming from. Let's just take one really powerful example to see how this all works. Let's talk climate justice for a second. It's just a fact that historically, the wealthiest, most industrialized countries are the ones responsible for most of the carbon emissions that got us into this climate mess. And here's the fundamental injustice. The countries that did the least to cause the problem are the ones facing the worst consequences. So who pays to fix it? Well, a cosmopolitan would say the wealthy nations have a clear moral duty to step up. A statist might argue that each country needs to figure out its own plan. And a realist? They'd probably say it's all going to come down to power and negotiation, not what's fair. The gap between rich and poor is another huge battleground. And the reality is, it's staggering. The top 10% of the world's population holds over 3/4 of all global wealth. Meanwhile, the entire bottom half of humanity holds just 2%. And, that imbalance is about so much more than just money. It's a massive gap in opportunity, in health, in basic security. Now, facing challenges this big can feel, well, pretty overwhelming. But the point of global justice isn't just to point out what's wrong, it's to imagine and actually build a better way forward. So what does that better, fairer world even look like? At the end of the day, the goal is to build a world that's safer and more humane for everybody. That means things like actively promoting peace instead of conflict, seriously working to reduce poverty, protecting the basic rights of every single person, and really trying to create a sense of shared responsibility. This idea that, we're all in this together. This is really what it all boils down to. This quote just captures the ambition, the very heart of this whole concept perfectly. It's a vision for a world that lives up to our best ideals, not just for some of us, but for all of us. And that brings us right back to where we started, with a question. But this time, it's not for presidents or philosophers. It's for you. What is your responsibility to a complete stranger on the other side of the world? Because whatever answer you come up with, that's where global justice really begins. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.